Hi, Roberta.
Hey, hi Duncan. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Enjoying your summer?
Yes, yes. Going too fast though.
Yeah, isn't that always the way? It just
Yes.
always seems that way. We turn around and it's almost gone.
And this crazy smoke from Canada has been
Oh,
like something.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And those floods in New York City and up along the Eastern Seaboard. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, even in Canandaigua, we had some friends in Canandaigua that were taking to the second floor of their house because the first floor is getting flooded. I mean, it's like crazy.
Oh my goodness. Wow. You know what? I didn't realize that. I did see a story about the Southern Tier and
Yeah,
how badly they've
Canandaigua.
been hit.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Wow. Terrible, terrible. Oh, yeah. Well, if we don't, do you remember that book, Silent Spring, by, was it Rachel Carson, where she
Yeah.
said, yeah, how many years ago was that?
Oh,
50?
geez, it was in the 60s, I think.
Was it in the 60s?
It had to be because my father had a reading program, and that was a book on the reading program that we had to read as kids. And I
Oh
was
my,
pretty young.
oh my goodness. Yeah, had we listened, but no, 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 we can't listen to anybody, and especially not scientists.
The connect, nobody will doubt we have a connected community, world community.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well, did you see the temperatures in Phoenix were 110 the
For the
other day, up to
last 19 days
117?
or something like that. It's like crazy number of days that it's been above 110.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine what 110 feels like. And then they did the heat index to show the temperature plus the humidity. It was something like 152 degrees. That's how it felt.
It's crazy. I was down in Phoenix for business one time, and I think it was only like 108, but I went to like one of these parks, and it was, basically cacti and all that. And I was
Right.
taking pictures, and my camera got so hot I basically had a hard time holding it. And that was lower temperature than what they're seeing now. It's like,
Ugh, I can't even imagine that. Somebody said to me, you can cook a chicken at that temperature.
yeah. And you think of like elderly or poor that, like if you don't have air conditioning, what are you doing? How do you survive
I
even?
don't think you can. I don't think you can.
Well, people are joining us. Hi, Denny.
Oh, better be quiet.
Denny, you're on mute, just so you know.
I've been greeting you without pressing the right buttons.
No trouble.
And, oh, good morning, Cindy, Annette, William. Who else is on? I'm sure I saw more people on a minute ago. Gallery.
We have 6 with us right now.
Okay. I'm only seeing 3. What am I doing wrong? Oh, no. Hello, Roberta. I'm so glad you're on. I didn't hear from you about land acknowledgement. Are you up to it?
Um, I'm sorry, I never saw the note. I will find a land acknowledgement. Yes, I'm fine. And good morning to
Thank
you as well.
Thank you so much. Good morning, Asim. Thanks for joining us. Hi, Barbara. Are you joining in from the Adirondacks? Hello, Cindy. My name is Denny Mack. Good to meet you.
Hi, Denny. Good
Welcome,
to meet you.
Debbie.
Hi.
So let us begin with introductions, and then we'll have Roberta give us a land acknowledgement and Reverend Wilkinson give us a devotional. And let's pray Shane in because we want to hear his important presentation, yet I don't see him on yet. So Duncan, would you introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Duncan Harris. I'm with the Southeast Catholic Community, and I'm also with Penfield Hope and Rock Axe, among other organizations.
Thank you. Cindy, would you introduce yourself and what congregation you represent?
Sure. Cindy Rasmussen. I'm Episcopal priest at St. Mark's and St. John's on Culver Road, and I'm also on the faculty of Colgate Rochester Crozier Divinity School.
Great. I'm a neighbor of yours. I live on Queensboro Road. My house backs onto the house that looks across the street at Dan's Crafts and Things.
Oh, fantastic.
Just just about 10 blocks away from you. Reverend Wilkinson.
Hello, I'm Reverend Wilkinson. I'm pastor at the Medina First Presbyterian Church, and in Rock Axe, I'm the convener of the Center for the Welcoming Way Incorporated.
Thank you. And Deb. Debbie, would you introduce?
I thought you said Bev. Hi, I'm Debbie Rosenfeld. I represent the Rochester Baha'i community on Oxford Street.
Good to have you on. And Stephen, would you introduce yourself, please?
I'm Steve Gaudioso. I'm a member of Third Presbyterian Church and part of an anti-racism team that works there.
Thanks for joining us. Betty, would you introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. I'm Betty Jarabek, and I represent Mary Magdalene Church in East Rochester, New York.
Thank you, Betty. And David Palmer.
Deacon David Palma. I'm at the Southeast Rochester Catholic Community, St. Mary's Blessed Sacrament, and St. Boniface.
Welcome. And you're taking retirement so seriously, I hardly ever see you anymore. Good to have you back.
Well, there's another reason going on there, but at any rate, we can talk.
Okay. Okay. And Roberta, would you introduce yourself, please?
Roberta Davis, the Interfaith Alliance of Rochester and Rock Axe.
Thank you. Annette, would you introduce yourself?
I'm Annette Hunt. I'm from the Cathedral community at Sacred Heart, sitting in mostly for Kathleen McGrail, who's away today.
Thanks for joining us. Asim, would you introduce yourself?
Yes, hi. Asim Johnson. I'm with 1199 SCIU and also the chair of the Poverty Housing and Jobs Task Force through Rock Axe.
And he'll be responding to our speaker today. Does anybody happen to have Shane Wygand's phone number? Because if you do, you could call him. I sent him the link yesterday, and who knows? He agreed to speak with great joy. Let's see. We have not yet heard from Barbara Green. Would you like to introduce yourself, Barbara? She may be having trouble joining because she's in the Adirondacks.
Barbara said she can't go off mute, but she put something in the chat, I believe.
Great, wonderful, good. And Ted, would you introduce yourself, please?
Hi, Ted Polano over at Third Presbyterian Church, and I help out on the Poverty, Jobs, and Housing Task Force.
Great, good to have you. And Rock Axe has a person on. Would you introduce yourself, please?
Hi, Danny. It's Henrietta. Hope you all are having a good day.
Good, good. Henrietta, good to have you on board. So no, Henrietta, would you happen to have Shane Wygand's phone number?
No, I do not.
Okay. For all of you, he is the fourth grade Rush Henrietta High School teacher who was asked by his students about segregation and housing in general, because they do study New York State history, and they wanted the background. And so he took his students' questions seriously, and he interviewed such dignitaries as Dr. Alice Young, who was one of the highly educated people who came up in what is called the Great Migration, but was really refugees coming up north. And at least that's what many Black people have told me it was. And he interviewed not only Dr. Young, who still lives, but found when she arrived in Rochester in the 60s with a doctorate in education, that she could not find housing. And Mrs. Harper Sibley Sr. bought a house. The Youngs moved in the middle of the night. The neighbors mistreated them and they stayed anyway, of course, thank God. And the school that's near Immaculate Conception Church in Cornhill is named for Dr. Young. She was is such an important leader in Rochester City School District for very, very many years, and a wonderful voice of reason and a wonderful educator. And there were many others like her that could not find housing. So Shane Wygand did this enormous research into all of the redlining that is not only in the local area, but is federally legislated or was, and state legislated. And he focused on our local area. And it's eye-opening. And you really want to see and hear his amazing research, which has been given in so many different places, congregations, conferences, and he keeps improving on it because there's more and more discoveries that he's making. And we have Asim on board to respond to him. And all of us will be responding because it's important in this terribly serious housing crisis that we have, of the lack of safe, affordable housing available to renters and buyers. The cause, one of the causes of it. And I can hardly wait for him to join. But in the meantime, I welcome Barry Swan. I know that you're having surgery or have had surgery. How are you doing?
My original neurosurgeon left town 3 days before my surgery was supposed to be, but August 1st, I'm undergoing the knife, as they say. So
Oh,
we'll see.
dear.
We'll see.
We'll just postpone our prayer. No, we can keep praying right now so that you're pain-free as you approach the surgery too. Okay. Oh, Shane is on board. Thank you for joining us, Shane. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, Denny. I'd be
Hi.
happy to. I can only stay for a little bit. I didn't realize I was coming to this today. I just saw an email, so my apologies. I guess I
You
didn't
didn't
realize
have us on your calendar?
it was not
you-
on the calendar. I didn't
You
receive any-
sounded so enthusiastic back about a month ago.
when we talked. I am so sorry, but I can give a real quick update to folks.
And I know how proficient you are on the topic, so I totally trust your update. Is it so brief a time that you're with us that you would prefer that we hold off our land acknowledgement, our introductions? We have had our introductions, our land acknowledgement and our devotional until after you've left? Or you want to
I
hear
really
that?
can only stay about 15 minutes before
Okay,
I
then
have
we
to-
will,
I'm
if
presenting
it's
at a
okay
conference,
with
so-
William and Roberta, we'll hold off the land acknowledgement and the devotional until after Shane has spoken. Is that okay?
Seems sensible.
Thank you. That's good with you too, William?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, thank you. Okay, then Shane, you're on. Thank you.
Well, it is wonderful to be with you all. And I just want to first extend a big thanks to Rock Acts. I think it was maybe 6 years ago or 7 that someone from Rock Acts invited me to speak to the education committee. And it was the first time I ever gave a presentation on redlining that wasn't to 9-year-olds. And I gave a terrible presentation, but the Rock Acts team was so nice to me and gave all kinds of great feedback and connected me with other folks. And I ended up meeting so many incredible elders in our community who have been doing work around racial equity and justice in our community and helped lead to the creation of the Anti-Racist Curriculum Project, Keisha James runs the project with me. We're co-directors at CCSI. She's on vacation today, or else I would try to make sure she hopped on too. But this is our 3rd year of being full-time and out of the classroom. Keisha and I pretty much every day of the week are in a different school or classroom or school of education at all 6.
Oh dear, Duncan, can you help Shane get unfrozen?
No, let me see what we can do. I did email him the link and all that. Hopefully he will be able to come back. Let's give this a moment. I'm thinking he's dropped off to try and rejoin.
Hope so.
Let's give him another minute.
Has anybody been frozen? Have any recommendation?
Usually just try to come back in.
Yeah,
You
he's
hit
not.
your computer with a hammer.
We try not for that. We try not for that. Yeah, I'm just hoping that he's able to rejoin, but the general thing would be to close your browser down, open your browser up, re-click the link and see if you're able to join back on.
Yeah.
If that doesn't work, then you might try rebooting your computer and going through that process, or looking at your router or something like that. That's the usual problems.
So great to have somebody on who knows what this stuff is all about.
I will email him again just to see if he's having trouble that we might be able to help with.
Thank you. While we're waiting for him to come back, I received an email from Nick Coulter. Oh, he
Oh,
is
here he
back.
is.
Good.
Yeah.
There you go, Shane.
I am so sorry, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I had a technical difficulty here. I'm in the parking lot at a conference, so. All right, so what I want to give a quick update on, I think that would be helpful, is I put in the chat, I hope you had a chance to see it. We have that is where all of our curriculum now lives. We have curriculum in grades 2 through 12 on the local history. It's all inquiry-based. It fits with the New York State Social Studies and CRSC standards. And now 16 of 21 local school districts are using this work. A number of districts in Wayne County are starting to talk to us about using it, so we're optimistic there. And then, like I mentioned, the 6 local colleges. We also do this work monthly with the Real Estate Board in Rochester, and actually partnered with the local real estate and National Association of Realtors on a film on racial covenants and redlining, which you can watch online. I put it in the chat right there. And that's also where you can find all of our curriculum and interactive maps that show the racial covenants, the redlining, and over 80 stories of civil rights and where they're located all across Rochester from 1800 to today. So some really neat pieces that are going on there. Otherwise, I'm trying to think what other updates that would be helpful. I think the other thing to kind of know is that I think the schools are starting to become more and more responsive. They're seeing that kids aren't falling apart when they learn this history. They're instead feeling very empowered. But I think there's still real fear from a lot of school districts that if they teach all of this history or make it mandatory in their district, people will be upset. A small number of folks who are coming to school board meetings. So we're still facing a little bit of that fragility and fear in some of our communities, but we're seeing some real movement, I would say, in the last few years, where even districts like Hilton or Wheatland Chi-Li, Gates Chi-Li are working with us. Victor, a bunch of these places that initially didn't, but are now really starting to have us come in, run our trainings. And then the other thing I'd add is we do trainings now for churches, community groups. It's free to come to your church or your community group or organization. And we don't just do a lecture, which I think many of you have seen some version of a lecture I've given in the past about the history of redlining. It's like me talking for a straight 60 minutes. We don't do that anymore. We've learned what we do with kids is what we should do with adults. So we actually do a very interactive session. It's an adapted version of the curriculum. When we come to churches or when we come to folk places in the community, where people have a chance to really dive in and dig a little deeper, but also decide for themselves what they think about it and feel a little less told what happened. And that's actually, I think, been very convincing and helped us reach folks that we wouldn't normally connect with. Like a group like the Realtors, doing it not as a lecture, but as an inquiry-based curriculum where they're looking at sources facilitated by Keisha and I. That's been a really powerful experience. So those are some of the things that are going on with us. I really appreciate the way you all have given some support over the years and would welcome any questions, but I do have to go in about a minute or two here. I'm so sorry. But any questions I'd love to answer in the remaining minute. And again, I am so sorry about confusion on my end about being here for this meeting.
If I could ask, how does one contact, or who would we contact to try to have a program brought to our church?
You can contact me or Keisha James. I'll put our emails right in the chat.
Thank you.
And Denny and Duncan and a bunch of other folks here will have our email. I think you're.
And Shane, the new film that you put into the chat ends with the words home access denied. That sounds very hopeless. But it really, if we click it, we're really going to have access.
Will we have access?
Yeah.
Oh, no. The access denied to housing is what that's
Yes.
the title.
Okay.
The title is home access denied, because in Rochester, racial covenants, realtors, and redlining denied access to housing.
Okay.
And it's the story of two families, a Hispanic family and off of Joseph Avenue and a mixed race family in Meadowbrook and Brighton, talking about the impact of racial covenants and redlining that they still experience and what they're doing to fight back against that today. The film actually ends with the words, "What will you do?" This is a call to action. And it was directed by Carvin Eisen and Martin Hawk, two Black local filmmakers. Carvin did July 64. We'll actually be doing a screening at the Little Theater that you're all invited to. It's free on September 28th. If you want to invite folks to that. And that'll be connected to some of the conversation around violence in our community that we're experiencing and how that's rooted in systemic racism. And we'll be a part of that conversation. So would love to have folks out.
Shane, what time is that September 28th filming?
That will be at 7 o'clock.
And will it be followed by a panel that you're on?
Yes, there'll be a panel with local leaders that do work around anti-violence, as well as some of the filmmakers. Folks like Justin Murphy, who is the writer of our film, Carvin Eisen, the director, will be included.
Great. I highly recommend these things at the Little Theater. I've been to about 5 of them, and one excels the other. They're so informative, brave, and very helpful people speak up and apply the learnings to what's happening locally. It's so important. What's the title of that 7 o'clock September 28th filming?
Yes.
What's the title of it?
It'll be called Home Access Denied, and it'll be shown with July 64. So we're going to watch them together. So the uprising of 1964, and then 2 will be our film. So it's going to be an awesome night. So hope folks can join. But we'll come out and show it and facilitate a circle or discussion at your church. as
Okay.
well as with some of the parts of our curriculum. We have
Great.
a whole program that goes along with it. Not everyone responds to a lecture, but a film with human stories, with kids and their parents talking about this,
Yeah.
it's connecting in a totally different way. So we've
Yeah.
screened it to about 2,000 people now, and you'll see quite a few views on YouTube. So please share that, put it on Facebook. I really think people, this is a way that in 20 minutes, you can
Mhm.
learn a lot of the history that
Mhm.
wasn't taught to us growing up. So that's kind of a cool new thing that we're offering.
Yeah, the last time I heard, I saw you was when your partner in this was on the panel with a Mercy High School girl and Tiffany, and it was a remarkable panel. Is that Mercy High School graduate going to be on this panel that you're talking about? Because
No,
she's
that would be really neat, but I know she would love to talk with you all. I actually think it would be really cool to have Benita Koirala. She just graduated from Mercy. Have
yeah,
a chance to share with you about her experience at Mercy as a scholar. It was
Yeah.
very challenging for her.
very.
And she didn't learn this history. She actually found our website and taught it to herself because her
And-
school did not teach it to her. And so my hope is that this will lead to us getting to do some trainings at Mercy. We
Good.
trained the whole staff at McQuaid. But we
Good.
had no connection at Mercy or Aquinas. So
Okay.
if you have a connection with social studies people there,
Yeah.
we offer free training and would love to make sure that how Benita felt doesn't happen.
Good. Good.
But Benita's doing awesome work on exclusionary zoning. She worked with folks like Ruhi Maker, Barb Ben Kirchhoff, will be familiar to some of you, Dr. Stu Jordan at U of R. So just some really cool stuff that's going on.
She took the initiative and worked with the politicians in Roche Henrietta, where she lives,
She did.
about the whole racial issue, and she presented it so well in the panel. And I happened to be one of the people called in to Mercy to hear their capstone reports.
Oh, did you get to hear hers?
Yeah, and I said to the people at Mercy that invited me to come over, you gave me the 7 best capstone reports, but I think everybody who reviews these might have said the same thing. But she was phenomenal. What she could do at, what is she, 18 years old? I couldn't do at 40 years old. She's amazing. Incredible.
Just incredible.
Yeah, yeah.
Any other last questions before I head out?
Asim has some, I know. Asim has accepted the invitation to respond to you, Shane.
Sure, go ahead, Asim. Yeah.
Yep. Thank you so much for that, Dr. Mack. There's Shane. Okay. Shane, thank you so much for this presentation and speaking so passionately and eloquently about the issues here regarding housing. I wanted to know, have you all, or is there thought around advocacy that can be done through the research that you've done? I understand that Assemblymember Clark had a bill that just passed around a vacancy housing study. And I'm curious if there are other opportunities that you see that we as a religious community can help to advocate on a local and state level.
I think the first area would be building off of what our students are telling us, like Benita. She's really focused on exclusionary zoning and the recommendations in the Race Commission on that. Governor Hochul's bill for the budget was just squashed when it came to allowing accessory dwelling units or towns having to increase affordable housing. Rochester's new redlining or racial covenants is zoning. And in the 60s, you can't discriminate based on race anymore. So all of our towns changed their zoning codes at the end of the 60s. Like in Pittsford, when they changed their zoning code, the head of the NAACP, Robert Rhodes, called it the new racial covenants. You know, Joe Wilson, the president of Xerox, actually challenged like Greece and Pittsford when they were changing their zoning codes and called it out as wrong. And yet all those codes still went through, making it almost impossible to build affordable housing. So I think that's some of it. I also think on the national level, the way that affordable housing is being done with low-income housing tax credits should really be looked at. In a group like this, I think could really offer some exploration. But I do think we just need to go to our town zoning board and town board meetings and say, we would like a town that's more inclusive. That's what Benita did. And she was actually able to change something in her town. We have a group of students from McQuaid who have been working on that, not as successfully in Penfield. But you learn the history, you see people who have gone before you doing this work. And our hope is that that is one of the things that happens, that kids have been advocating for. So I'm optimistic around some of those things, but I would say zoning is a big one. I think things like community land trusts are really, really important. There's a need for a suburban community land trust to create permanent affordability. And then I also just think what we're doing with schools, like, and the way funding is allocated. It's really cool to see Isaiah here, and congratulations. But you know, how are we coming together as a community around some of that stuff? So I hope that helps us see.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
I have to run. I am so sorry, but I'm presenting at the
Shane, I need to keep you for just one quick announcement besides a thank you.
Great.
On August 26th, Jeremy Cooney's staffers will be on this call or we'll meet in person. And it'll be all about safe, affordable housing. I sent him a blistering letter about the crisis that we are in with the lack of safe, affordable housing, with tax subsidies going to developers of luxury residences and inadequate support of safe, affordable housing, sprinkled all over this metropolitan area. And he has assigned staffers to meet with us from 11:30 to 1 on August 26th. Nick Coulter of Person-Centered Housing is very keen on working with us. Liz McGriff is, Ryan Acuff on Citywide Tenants Union, Kim Hunt Uzelak from Family Promise, Reverend Peter Peters from Reach. We need to work together, shoulder to shoulder, and make this happen. So I'm so glad Jeremy Cooney's staffers will be with us.
Please invite me. I would love to come to that.
Good,
Thank you all
good.
so much, and I'm so sorry about the confusion with the time. I just am grateful for you all so much. Please reach out to me if you have any questions. Would love to meet with anyone individually.
And we're grateful to you. Thank you, Shane.
Awesome. Good to see you all. Bye-bye.
Good. Let us have our land acknowledgement and welcome Dick.
Hi, thank you. Thank
and
you.
welcome
I'm so happy to
Isaiah.
be here.
Where is Roberta? Are you there, Roberta?
I am. We recognize the unique and enduring relationship that exists between Indigenous people and their traditional territories. We acknowledge that we are on the historic homeland of the Haudenosaunee. Yuhaki Pilsu, this land is sacred. Let this acknowledgement serve as a reminder of our ongoing efforts to recognize, honor, reconcile, and partner with the Haudenosaunee people whose lands, resources, and water we benefit from today.
Thank you, Roberta. We could take our shoes off, walk on this earth, and thank God. And thank the people that have prepared this land and help us change our ways so that those people are always with us in solidarity, we with them in solidarity, and in full respect. And William, would you be so kind as to lead us in a devotional?
Thank you, Denny. Today's devotional is taken from the work of spiritual minister of the Unitarian Church, Claudine Dean Oliva. She has named us her interfaith prayer for the world. In the spirit of love and compassion, let us pray. Spirit of life, gods of many names, be in our hearts and minds as we come together today to pray for our world. We come today as people of privilege, grateful for this blessing and hopeful for our future. Let us know that each from our own tradition comes today to lift our spirit in unity. Knowing that we are a part of an interconnected web of life, let us acknowledge and embrace our oneness. We pray that we may be loving and able stewards of this world. We pray that we acknowledge our differences as we seek out our common ground, each of us working toward the good of all. We recognize that there is hurt and sorrow deeds that confound us, actions for which we can find no justification. Yet we also know that there is untold good, folks that work every day for the benefit of all people. Let us stand with them. We pray that we have the strength to recognize the inconvenience of our soul work and to overcome the inertia that invades us during these difficult times. We pray that while we recognize the occasional tiredness in our bones and in our hearts, that we call upon the strength of our higher power, that we might be the best person that we are called to be. Yes, let us be the good we want to see in others. Let us work to be the change that we seek. As we renew these goals in our hearts, let us say together, Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Virginia, welcome on board, and my condolences to your loss. Virginia is an associate of the Sisters of Mercy, who have just suffered a terrible loss of a sister in a terrible car accident. Virginia, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Virginia Fifield, and as Denny said, I'm an associate of Mercy, but also a member of the Southeast Catholic community. And I do ask for prayers. We still have two sisters, one who has never regained consciousness, and one who is in the ICU with internal injuries. So we don't know how that's going to go. And we are waiting now to receive the body of Sister Arlene Skamensky.
We support you in your grief and hold these women in prayer. Thank you. Let's see. There's somebody who is just, Lori Mahoney, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I didn't want to be seen, guys. Hi, I'm just listening in for a little while, and I wanted to say hello and also hi, Ginny, Asim. I wanted to listen to Sean. I hope you've been able to connect with him okay.
He gave a fine presentation. Thank you.
Oh, I'll have to listen to the recording.
But you're going to listen to more discussion about it. Asim Johnson's on board with that very role to respond and to whatever. And Isaiah, would you introduce yourself to us, please?
Hello, everybody. My name is Isaiah Santiago. I'm 19 years old, a rising sophomore at St. John Fisher University. Also the youngest elected official in the history of Rochester, New York, and one of the youngest in the country. I sit on the board of the Rochester City School District, where I sit as the Commissioner of Education. I guess I don't sit there yet. I don't get sworn into January of next year. So I am Commissioner-elect, Isaiah Santiago. So that's just a little bit about me.
Some of us were with Isaiah when Rochester City School District and Children's Agenda organized a protest, a demonstration for solutions, not suspensions. That's one of the many things that Isaiah is working on. Now let's get back to our topic for today that's going to continue into August 26th and beyond, because we're really going to do something about this safe, affordable housing. Asim, can we go back to you? I'm sure that you have more to say on the subject.
Yeah, sorry, I was reading the chat, Lori's message. Yeah, I mean, I think that it sounds like a great opportunity for us to do some advocacy. I think that we should first start with the viewing, really promoting it at the Little Theater. And then I would love to see if there's a way that maybe we can talk with the youth that Shane spoke about and figure out some type of strategy to get to our elected officials around the zoning issues, and specifically with planning out having a presence at those zoning meetings.
Yeah, include us in. We'll join you. Some of us will. What are the rest of you thinking and experiencing and listening to the people in your congregations about zoning and about the community land trust and funding for Rochester City School District and the suburban districts, the great divide with how well supported our schooling is. Then let's go with Nick Coulter, who is founder director of Person-Centered Housing. Were you on to hear Shane's presentation, Nick?
I was not.
No.
I was not, but I've heard Shane's presentation a couple times. Is there anything I can lend to? And for folks that don't know who I am, I'm one of the co-founders of PCHO. We are person-centered housing options, and we provide outreach and community services and housing for the formerly homeless. But we are, very invested in any efforts to make housing more accessible for our lower income households, as well as folks that are experiencing homelessness. So, if there's anything I can lend in terms of info or support to your cause, I will.
Another gift that Nick has for us is community organizing and doing the research to get the funding out of the government that's been allocated. Years ago, he was working with a friend in a garage in Fairport about the issue of housing and had the brilliant idea to find out what had been allocated to Rochester. And lo and behold, there was HUD funding available. Hello. And now, how many years later, Nick?
We're in our 8th year.
8 years later, he has 35 employees. And how many housing deprived people would you say person-centered housing has helped?
On an annual basis, we serve just under about 500 men, women, and children in our housing, and we serve roughly 300 households on the streets every year. I also want to say that I am a School of the Arts grad along with Isaiah Santiago, and we're very proud of our creative upbringing. So I just wanted to acknowledge that there's a lot that can come from that. So I think areas that you're focusing on, right? Are we focusing on advocacy and bringing more housing, affordable housing to this population?
We certainly are.
So I think there's a couple things going around in the state that are important to know and understand in terms of housing development that might be support your cause. A lot of developers that want to do affordable housing development in areas that are frankly struggling with low income residents are going the route of home and community renewal for their funding source. Home and community renewal provides tax credits for affordable housing development. It also provides developer fees for developers to capitalize on to continue to do more projects. So, they're making on a deal $500,000 in their developer fees. Well, there are other funds that they could go after at the state level to subsidize the construction costs. And I think there are other funds that don't provide those developer fees. Well, these developers want money to continue to create projects and do affordable housing, but the other funding sources don't provide the same robust financial support to these developers to do the job. So places like home leasing are telling me, well, I want to do that job with you, Nick, but the funding source doesn't give us enough money to cover our initial costs. Okay, well, I mean, that's an area where Senator Cooney could go back to the state and say, we want to increase this developer fee in this specific department because the other departments are giving that developer fee, but not in homeless housing. So I'm trying to describe that in an easy to understand way that we can wrap our heads around. And if you have any questions about that, I can describe it better, but I think developers want to be helpful to the homeless and affordable housing arena, but I don't think sometimes financially they can stomach some of the costs without better incentives.
And we have Jeremy's staffers meeting with us August 26th from 11:30 to 1. And so Nick, if you can be with us there, you can restate what you just said now.
Yeah, that's just
people.
one area.
Yeah, this is why they responded to my really blistering letter outlining the horrors in this neighborhood, in this area of the lack of safe, affordable housing and the enormous amount of funding, tax breaks that go to luxury residences development, and how little goes to what is really needed. So if you can bring back Liz McGriff and Ryan Acuff, who you brought a meeting or two ago, we'd be glad to have them because we can really affect some legislation and we can work out a pathway so that we can work together on this and make it happen.
I will bring them at the August 26th meeting, and you have a couple people that have their hands up, but
thank you.
August 26th is a Saturday. Is that correct?
I thought it was a Thursday, a Wednesday. I will recheck and get back to everybody. I have all of your emails, and that's what their letter to me said, August 26th. I don't know if that's the date I offered them or a date they're offering me. I just didn't check that, but I will.
I think the 23rd is the Wednesday.
Is it?
Yeah. So
okay.
Just so you know, I have both on my calendar to be present for you.
Thank you. Thanks. Yeah. I'll check that out with my calendar and with them. Yeah. Okay. Barry's has his hand up.
Denny, if we meet, are we going to meet on the third Wednesday? Then that's the 16th. Would that be?
Maybe that was a typographical error.
That's what I wondered.
Either Jeremy's or my part. I don't know.
Okay.
I will follow up on that and let you know.
Yep. Okay.
And Barry, your hand is up.
Hi. Nick did a very good presentation, very useful presentation for the Interfaith Alliance in the spring. I'm left with questions concerning as to exactly who makes decisions on things, both locally in terms of the state and federal, because all of those are sources of money. Which of our state and local and federal legislators are cooperative and which ones are a problem? And somehow we can do some lobbying with them if we have that information. Thank you.
That's a really great question. And this is where I think on some level, Ryan and Liz, and it looks like Asim, might be able to give us more insight on that. I know that Governor Hochul puts out her budget, and that budget is increasing affordable housing funding for specific departments at the state level. If I want to go and apply for that funding and acquire buildings or rehab buildings or build new, I'm going to have to apply through the Office of Temporary Disability Assistance, or OTDA, HCR, or Home and Community Renewal. I'm going to have to apply for home funds at the city level. I'm gonna have to apply for, and so who makes those decisions? Well, each of the commissioners of those departments informs Governor Hochul. And my understanding would be that when we go to apply for those, I have to list all of the legislators and senators that are in my application. I have to list all of those folks and what jurisdictions they're in. So whether or not they play a role in approving my application is another ballgame. I don't believe that they do. But the community neighborhood associations and whoever finds out about your development plays a huge role in NIMBYism and plays a huge role in zoning and how we move forward with projects. So if you're familiar with the project out Skyview out in Irondequoit, well, they pitched that to the Irondequoit town supervisors, put a lot of effort into this is Rochester Regional and Pathstone. And now the area Irondequoit, because of some of the challenges with the clients that are living on site, has really put up a lot of barriers to continuing to develop in that area because they don't want those people in their area. They found out that homeless people were moving and now moving into these apartments, even though, you know, homeless people and unhoused people and housed people aren't very different at all.
Yeah.
They just don't have roofs over their head. But regardless, now that jurisdiction, that area, that government is concerned because their constituents are complaining about these issues that are happening when these issues happen in all developments, right? They happen everywhere and properties all over the Monroe County area. So, you know, I think localized effort to support projects where there might be a lot of NIMBYism is a great way to move forward, but also looking at who's giving Governor Hochul information to make these decisions at a state level, right?
Nick and Asim, as you know of these meetings coming up in Irondequoit particularly, please let me know and give me a script. And I'm glad to go to those and speak up because I'm an East Irondequoit resident. And I've been here since 1963 in the same house and and affected our neighborhood about welcoming Black people into our neighborhood. People were saying 40 years ago, I'm moving. And I said, wait a minute. And we just talked it through and things changed. So we can be more welcoming, be more, as you say, people without a roof over their heads are not different from people with a roof over our heads. Yeah. Asim, thank you for what you put into the chat. Poverty Housing Jobs Task Force is a part of the Rochester Alliance Housing Accountability Coalition, along with CWTU. Can we plan one joint meeting to discuss advocacy? Yes, indeed, we can. And the same people will be invited to this meeting that Jeremy Cooney's staffers are coming to. We can make that happen and continue to work together, you know.
That'd be great.
Yeah, that's really what we want to do. And Lori has put something in. If anyone wants to join me in the RAISE housing cart, which is focusing on 2 systemic RAISE recommendations related to coalescing community organizations about land trust. And secondly, some specific zoning issues, please reach me. And here's Lori's email address, lorimahoney2016@gmail.com. And they meet the 4th Wednesday at noon via Zoom. That's very important. We'll be sure we get some people on that. Are you meeting with Liz McGriff on land trust, Lori? Maybe Lori stepped away from the screen.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I have to drop off. please
Okay.
do reach out. That would be
Okay.
fantastic.
Is Liz McGriff going to be at your fourth Wednesday?
He is a member of the group.
Good.
Nick has agreed to join us. Barry has been involved slightly. Trying to think. Asim is aware of it. We
Good.
just want to collaborate with everyone as well.
Indeed. Because this is a raise recommendation that we're all working on and we want to do it together. I happen to have a conflict at noon on the fourth Wednesday. Is that when you? Yeah, noon. So is there any chance it would be recorded and I could listen to it afterward?
We could pull that off and I take succinct minutes.
That would be great. That would be really great because we want to work with you. We really do. Who else wants to? Yes, Virginia's hand is up.
Yeah, one question I wanted to ask years ago, I believe it was in the late 80s, early 90s, the city was working with HUD to rehab empty houses. Are you looking into that?
So, I don't work for the city. I don't know if the city is doing that. The city has, but what you're talking about, I think you might recall, this was happening along like the public market or Market View Heights
Yes,
district.
yeah.
Yeah, that's what so there are, now it's done a little bit differently where developers will what we call do infills. And infills are basically like all of the houses that have been bulldozed and there's empty lots or houses that might be in irreparable repair issues. They'll buy literally multiple lots and start to redevelop those. Often though, that's going to go to a specific type of person that qualifies for that level of ownership. That ends up being individuals or families that might fall into an income category that's not necessarily in the affordable housing range. They may be just, so if you look at like median area income, this isn't the group that's falling below 30%. This isn't the group that's falling below 40%. This is the group that's in the 60 to 80% range. While our most needy populations are in the 30 to 40% range, where income of four people in a household is about 30,000. That's the 30%. I can show you the AMIs for 2023 if you want me to, but essentially we do a really good job of providing housing for the $50,000 to $80,000 income bracket for that group, while affordable housing for 30% to 40% is much more needed.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, next question I had for you though is in what the people that you're working with, are these people who also lost their homes during COVID?
They could be.
Or lost their housing during COVID?
So now we're seeing that the folks after COVID that have lost their jobs or not able to go back to work, et cetera, are becoming more part of the shelter and homeless system.
Right.
So we've got an influx of people coming into the shelter system while we're still dealing with the populations that have substance use and mental health issues. On top of that, now we're seeing more people in their cars that are homeless, but they still have a job. Larger families in the homeless system and needing more hotel placements for homeless and less availability of housing.
Right. Now, is New York State tapping into federal funds for that?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I was just talking to Joe Morelli a couple days, the 7th of July, or 6th of July. And he was saying some of the money that comes down to the housing development is from the federal government, and he wants to know how much that is. Because
Okay, thanks.
if it's slim at the federal level, then he might be person that we would talk to about increasing it to make there more availability for our goals.
I think that's going to be in the future.
I pray it is.
Cindy.
Great. Thank you for sharing all your information. This is fantastic. One of the things that I'm really concerned about is kind of quality of life issues around housing, and particularly kind of carving out some green space. So we kind of deal with the immediate issues, which I know are urgent, and at the same time kind of keep an eye on 4 to 5 to 10 years out and just quality of life pieces for everybody. So I'm wondering in kind of the path that you described of when, let's say, the city raises houses and that those lots become available to developers, are there any incentives for developers to keep 1 or 2 of those lots green spaces?
I think that's a great question for us to chat with the city, if you can get the city on this call. I don't know if there's incentives. I do know that I have neighbors in areas that we're developing, the Market View Heights neighborhood, where we have a building where we're almost done with it. We finished in October or November. That I've partnered with neighborhood members who have bought lots next to them for $300 and done and gotten grants to pay for the gardening of those lots. So I know that there's mechanisms to do that. Whether or not there's incentive for developers to save those lots to do that is a whole nother ballgame. I think city council might say, are you going to save those lots and make it a requirement for development to consider? That would be a city council decision, because when they come with their presentation to the city council has to approve it. So Asim and Isaiah know this. So if city council wants to hold some of those lots or say you need to do this, then they make that part of their plan. So that's another route to go, just for advocacy purposes. I was going to say something. When they're doing these developments from an environmental standpoint, there are pretty high requirements in terms of going to NYSERDA for energy efficient windows and appliances and et cetera. And so they are considering the environment. They may not be considering green spaces. I have to step out. I'm glad you guys invited me, and I'll continue to come if it gets on my calendar.
Thanks so much, Nick.
Okay.
You are a force, and I appreciate your work.
I won't stop.
Greatly.
Okay.
Thanks.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Ted, what do you have to say about all this? You're so active in the community.
Well, yeah, it would be helpful in terms of organizing people to be active and make things happen, to just have a list someplace, right? Like Nick threw out a whole bunch of stuff and he said, if you want to advocate on that, that's great. Like, I'd like to see a list, right? That I can talk to people about, like, here are the issues, or here are the bills or the proposals that we're working on. And also, we here at Third and a couple other places are talking about, like, what are the specific issues that need to be dealt with in terms of home ownership? Like, obviously the affordability of housing, but also we've been talking to Kim over at Family Promise. Like, Kim is on the streets with all this. Like, Kim, what are the issues that you're dealing with? Like, they're trying to move people into permanent housing, right? They have this transitional housing they just started. So I think for us, it's identifying what are the issues that really need to get tackled, and having a list someplace that we can address. Like, all right, here's what we're going. There are so many people dealing with these. I don't want to say everybody's siloed, but there are a lot of silos and people working on stuff. And, you know, the communication, like Asim's idea about bringing these three organizations together to talk about it. I just think the more we could do that, the better. And I know that the Poverty Housing Jobs Task Force, we're talking about a housing fair in the fall, where we're trying to bring everybody who does any sort of housing assistance into one location, right? And we're going to work with Andy Carey on this too. Like everybody who can help you with housing in one place, and then bring in people who are struggling with housing options. Here's everybody, the city, private, local, nonprofits, like get everybody in one place and then have a fair and have people come, like, what is your question? Okay, that's the group to talk to. But I think there's a lot of energy and a lot of possibility, but it's the struggle I've seen is just getting people on specific issues and specific topics.
Yeah, there's a lot of goodwill, a lot of concern, and then there are these very hardworking groups who are working on this, and we want to work together. We want to hear each other out and know how to do it, how to better advocate. Ed and I were part of a group of 6 that were just trained in April through Faith in Action. And part of that is community organizing, training, and how to agitate, how to deal with trauma, how to be activists. And it starts with listening to one another in one-on-ones so that we hear the most passionate concern each one of these people who are engaged in these advocacy efforts are focusing on, so that we can nurture that and give it support, the support it needs. The one-on-ones bring out the best in people. They want to talk about what they care most about. And we want to listen and support that and gather the folks. You know, when we used to have community actions with Rock Acts, Church of the Assumption would bring 35 people. Every member organization of Rock Acts brought 35 people. And we would meet with many hundreds of people and listen to 3 politicians who have been worked with, who agree to support these issues, and 3 spokespersons who are closest to the pain of the injustice, who can speak to a harrowing need that they personally experience, and how we can work together, the various collaborations and coalitions. And we can do this again. We can do it around safe, affordable housing, for instance. And so we're in the process of making that happen. One of the stories from Faith in Action long ago is by Joe Fleming, who's one of the Faith Coalition senior advisors for Faith in Action. He worked in Camden, New Jersey, you know, and he listened well to the people. He worked there for 17 years as a community organizer. These things don't happen overnight. And while he was there, he listened very, very keenly and very respectfully to not only people in power who can do something about these issues, but to the people in the neighborhoods experiencing the pain of injustice. And those folks said to him and to each other, the biggest problem we've got is abandoned houses. In these abandoned houses, there's drug dealings, there's fires, there's this, that, the other thing. And so they came together on that. And all of the congregational members and union members and agency members of the Faith in Action Network there in Camden engaged in lots of one-on-ones, and they gathered the 600 people they had one-on-ones with. You know, 60 people had 10 one-on-ones, and so the 600 people gathered for a wonderful dinner and worked together from there. I will send you minutes of Joe Fleming's report, just so that you see the effect of good community organizing. They start with listening and work with approaching the legislators and get them on board. because they do want to solve the problems. And as they moved along in this advocacy process, the fire department said, we'll assess every abandoned home in Camden. And, you know, they did. And they described just which houses are worth restoring. And that went into process and happened. And which have to be torn down. And that went into process and happened. And, you know, these things are not miraculous. They just take people listening and caring and doing the work. I think it may have been Purdue University offered to do a ton of research, and government gave funds because they were approached with the facts, and the fire department was so cooperative, and it worked. They did it. I'll send you this report that Joe Fleming gave, not this past April, but to Rochester religious leaders maybe 2 years ago, because we will not follow his exact procedure, but we will certainly listen to one another and come up with something so that we can be effective, so we can make positive change. Asim, what is on your mind and heart right now?
Just that, I mean, everything that you just laid out, Dr. Mack, really appreciate it. For us, we just have to educate our congregations and the respective churches and places of worship that we represent. From that education, I have a firm belief that it gives a person an inherent responsibility to want to do something, because they ask two questions: why and why not? Why is this happening and why not something better? And then from there, I think that those power sessions, meetings with the other stakeholders, as Reverend Ted just explained, is going to be extremely beneficial, because we bring a unique approach to the advocacy as people of the faith, which really resonates with elected officials, gives a certain level of validity to elected officials, that we could take our advocacy to a different level than some of the organizations. Going back to exactly what Reverend Ted was saying, it's a lot of silos, but what we've noticed, and this is what I've noticed through the Raha Coalition, is that certain groups have more of a challenge getting to elected officials than others. Just a quick example, we tried to have a meeting with the city, and they thought that it was a vocal meeting, and automatically they got on the defense and said, you know, you guys are here to attack us and we're trying to work with you. So I think that we can bring in a different level, a different approach that could be beneficial, but we just have to be strategic. So those power meetings will be extremely beneficial, but step one has to be the education.
I have a couple of recommendations for that education that I think all of you are aware of, and that's Kim Hunt-Uzelak, who's the executive director of Family Promise, showed religious leaders at one of our meetings her PowerPoint on housing is a human right. And I urge you to call Deb at Family Promise and get her to present that in your congregation, in your agency, in your social network, whatever. She's got the facts, she has the data, it's well presented, and that can go out to our congregations, large and small groups, for panel discussions afterward, interaction with the whole congregation afterward, whatever. And of course, Nick Coulter can come out and tell his story. They are both wonderful presenters. Jane Wigand and Keisha, who works with him, are dynamite presenters. If your congregation has already had Shane, bring him back with Keisha, because there's more. He's discovering more each day. And I can't wait to see this new stuff with interaction, because I found his lectures wonderful. We had him twice at Assumption, and 60 people heard him on one occasion, 30 on the first, and the audience doubled when we brought him back because he was so good. What else have you all got to say? How can we educate our congregations, our agencies, have you all heard Shane before?
Well, I'm certainly going to look to have him come to Mary Magdalene. I think that'd be-
Excellent,
I'm
great.
really glad about that.
Yeah, you could have a little series, maybe 3 consecutive Wednesdays or whatever, on housing is a human right. And have Kim one night, Shane another, and Nick or somebody else another.
We do a
Or
couple
Doc-
change program every month where we talk about different issues. We just
Yeah.
got one about mental health and
Good.
services. So this would be great. Yeah,
Good.
so perfect.
Good. And when you do mental health again, because these issues keep circling around, we recommend Melanie Funches. She spoke to religious leaders a couple of years ago and was terrific. What else are you doing? Also, Betty could publicize what she's doing at Mary Magdalene, and you could send your social justice folks from your own congregations to them to hear it so that they publicize it having heard the speaker, and then it can have that ripple effect, the domino, spread and to all. Duncan, could you envision having a series on this at Southeast Catholic Community where Nick is really based in that locale, and where Deacon David Palma went on lots of housing deprived jaunts in the middle of the night to minister to folks who are housing deprived.
Yeah, we're continuing. We had Shane this spring.
Great.
So we had that. So we're continuing the effort. We're continuing our homeless outreach every month. So we have a pretty active program. So we'll be doing more.
Good.
Down on that, working with the Land Trust on some initiatives as well.
Great. Would you like to describe any of that to us? We have a few moments today.
Really what we're trying to garner is some, work in combination with the Land Trust. One of the unique pieces about the Land Trust and, having them facilitate is it's one of the few ways, and there was some talk that Shane had, and Nick as well, about with the Land Trust, we can create permanently affordable housing versus even Habitat, as good as that is, that doesn't necessarily create permanent affordable housing. So, being able to talk to our city governments, local governments about the ability to donate land, buildings that can be rehabbed, managed by the Land Trust, and be kept in the realm of permanently affordable is just, I believe, a key issue that we need to support. And there needs to be sort of community involvement to, speak to that.
And have you had Shane present at Third Pres?
Yeah, we've had Shane here, and we've had, I'm forgetting the young man's name from the Community Land Trust. He's been here too. And Nick, and yeah, we've had everybody
Good.
pretty much come here. Yeah, they're great.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Have we come to a conclusion and ready for a closing evaluation? Oh, William has his hand up.
So Danny, from the first time that I heard Shane's presentation, and the same thought rises in me today. Shane alluded to this when he talked about how the towns have changed from the language of the old exclusionary codes to what they call zoning ordinances, and how they have translated in new words that seem to be unloaded, but that are actually restatements of exclusion. So one of the things that I'm interested in is us looking at over time the implications of understanding how the actual structure of our towns and communities in all of our villages, towns, and in the city of Rochester are actually apartheid, de facto apartheid, and asking ourselves, what are the implications of opposing apartheid and repairing apartheid? I think that the beginning of that discussion, of course, is affordable housing. But if we restrict our efforts to just affordable housing without looking at the basic problem, the central problem, we will do ourselves an injustice. You know, that one of the beauties of Shane's analysis and his team's analysis is letting us answer the question, well, I wasn't there when this was created, with the response, what is the relationship of what is to how it got there? And, you know, again, going to the race report, looking to that part of the race report that Shane pointed to see if in there aren't some leads to asking ourselves the question, how do we recognize the apartheid nature of our present structure? How do we begin to approach ourselves from a justice point of view to what we're called to if we see what is in?
Yeah. I could see us having role playing even among ourselves as to how to, well, first to do the research. So you have the facts.
I mean, just a real example, a case in point would be the fact that our school systems are segregated.
Yes. Yeah.
And rather, you know, usually what happens, we throw up our hands. Oh, look. But the fact is that they are segregated.
Yeah.
They're being enforced to remain segregated.
That's right.
Now, what are the implications for our present analysis for justice and seeking justice? That understanding. That's the kind of thing that I'm.
Yeah, you're interested in implications, and I'm interested in how to do it, how to take those facts and present them to people.
If you don't have a why,
oh, gotcha.
You don't know
we
the
need
how.
the both, right?
You don't know the how. You don't know the method. And so I think one of the resistances of the privileged, and I'm saying myself as part of the privilege, but of the very privileged, is to resist the full analysis of the why.
Yeah. I'd like to hear your presentation that I heard you give at John Knox Presbyterian Church. What did you call that? It was an historical analysis.
Well, we'll get into that in time.
Yeah.
But thinking about analyses, we have the opportunity to now to register for the Interrupting Racism Conference that's going to be happening in September, sponsored by the Urban League. I know that they put that word out, and I'll make sure that that Benny gets. I sent her the link to the prayer that we used today. And,
thank you.
Yeah, and I will send you the Interrupt Racism registration piece. That could be a really great place for our caucus members and their religious communities to become involved.
I would really like to get that information.
Yes, I'll send it to everybody. I wrote down your names of who's on. And Duncan, if you'll be so kind as to give me the chat as well as the recording of this meeting, I'll send out minutes.
That would be good. William, I think your point about understanding the why is really important.
Yes.
Because, you know, frankly, I'm astonished sometimes talking to people who really have no historical background at all and just don't even think about it. So I do think that's important. You know, it's like that. If you know that, you can then, Denny, then you can act because you understand what has led us to where we are. It's not just a bunch of people complaining. We have historical data. We understand why we are where we are. And most people don't think about it.
Yeah.
They just don't.
This is the truth, and we see the results of it.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's really important.
David, I wonder if you would like to, why don't we just go around and each say one word that evaluates today's gathering of Religious Leaders Caucus, Rock Acts Religious Leaders. How about starting with Betty? What would be your one-word evaluation?
Informative.
Okay, Barry. You're muted, Barry.
I think it was useful.
Thank you. Virginia.
Useful.
I also think it was useful.
Thank you. David.
Challenging.
William.
Very useful.
Debbie. You're muted.
Upsetting.
Duncan.
Engaging.
Roberta.
Activating.
Annette.
Informative.
And now, David Palmer, could I invite you to give a closing devotional?
Sure. So today, this morning, as I was praying, we're having a lot of challenges with just the sheer numbers of people that are on the streets and sleeping. And I was looking for something that would touch me. And I found a quote from Mother Teresa that I thought, well, at least it helped me to not feel completely depressed. So I'll just share this with you. I happen to have it on my desk here. I'm going to reflect on it for a couple of days. She says, in this life, we cannot always do great things, but we can do small things with great love. As I listened today, I would say that great love undergirds all of the discussion that we had today, the wanting to make a difference, and the idea that we care enough to be there, which is so important in this world today. William James says you have to act as if what you do makes a difference, because it does. So I kind of leave you with that sometimes in our challenging moments where we think nothing is really happening, we have to keep in mind these amazing people who would tell us that the small things that we're doing do make a difference, and that's important.
Amen. I'm so glad I asked you to give the closing devotional, because that is the way that we send one another forth. Confident, meaning with faith, that we are making a positive difference, not in a cocky way, because let's face it, the difference we're making is a tiny, tiny pebble, but confident that doing the right thing about homelessness is not only important, but it's essential and it's urgent. So it's good to be with you, and I look forward to being with you probably on the third Wednesday of the month, but I'll check back with Jeremy Cooney's staffers, and it might be a slightly different date because we really want to go at them because they can make a difference. And we'll be meeting with Liz McGriff of Land Trust, Dick Coulter of Person-Centered Housing, and as many of the other movers and shakers on housing as possible. Collaborate with them. Any other closing thoughts? Have a beautiful summer and all God's blessings. Thanks for joining us today.
You too.
Thank you.
Shalom.
Thank you.